Hello, we're here for another episode of Layback with Betfair. I'm Tom Haylock. The Australian Open has well and truly started. I welcome in the best man to talk about it, Steve Quick. How are you, great man?
Not too bad, thanks. It's been a busy week, I think, to start the first 5 days, and particularly last night. I think it was a late finish. I know you were thinking about going to the tennis last night, but did you get to Margaret Court Arena?
We'll touch on that in the lay bin in a minute, mate.
Okay.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
Sorry.
You're sleeping okay? You're a bit tired? You're a week into the tournament? Or 5 days into the tournament?
Yeah, sleeping okay. I mean, look, at least the tennis is on during the day here. For the most of the year, you're watching tennis through
Is it on during the day?
Not a lot. So you kind of get, a lot of through Europe and through the US here. I think the US Open starts about 1 a.m. our time. So it's actually not too bad for me at the moment, but it's just, the days do add up, particularly when you have some late finishes.
Kokonakis and Murray, that was not during the day. That started very late and went to the early hours of last night. So we'll touch on that in a minute. Great to have you here. How's the tournament gone so far from a betting perspective so far? Are we on track? Any big surprises?
Yeah, not too bad so far. So there have been obviously a couple of surprises through the first couple of days. Rafael Nadal was obviously a big one on the men's side of things with his injury. So we're so used to seeing at least Nadal, when he hasn't been at his best, still find that way into the second week and to still be a presence, but that wasn't the case. And there was absolute chaos in the men's yesterday with the likes of Taylor Fritz, Alexander Zverev and Casper Ruud all leaving the same quarter of the draw, so they're all out.
Wow.
So there is a bit of chaos down in the fourth quarter of the men's draw. But look, overall, the top names have made it through, so Swiatek and Novak Djokovic, but it hasn't been smooth sailing for Novak, but we might touch on that in a little bit.
We'll just read the market out currently. We'll talk about what happened last night with Novak as well. But currently the men's market at betfair.com.au, $2.54 Novak. He came into as low as $1.90 and he got as long as $3.40, I think, last night. He's $2.54 favourite at the moment. Medvedev been a huge mover. We came on this show a couple of weeks ago now, Steve. He was $9.50. We've seen a late withdrawal, a couple of outs, including our Aussie man. He's $4.30 now, Medvedev. Tsitsipas, $11.50. Holger Rune $12 and Sinner $18 next. We go to the women's. Iga Swiatek, $3. She played okay. I went and watched her the other night, but she was challenged enough. So she's $3. Sabalenka, $8.20. Pegula, $11.50. Garcia, $11 there in the women's side of the draw. As we usually do, Steve, I hope you're as tired as me because I've been up on the Gold Coast and a bit grumpy today.
Yep.
No, not too bad actually. But it's been a big couple of weeks to start the year. You got anything for the lay-bin for me to kick off?
Oh, look, the first one to kick off, and it's fresh in the mind just as driving in here this morning, but people who are on the roads who don't pay attention when they're at the front of the queue for a green light at the arrow there, chaos. Just
sitting on their phone
you sit
or something?
there and you wait and you've got, 4 or 5 seconds to get around and there's cars back. I do, but I'm probably a little bit too patient. And then there's nothing worse than when you toot and then they realise and they're the only car that gets through and just leave everyone else for dead.
Pay attention to the lights. You're in the lay-bin.
Yep, that is the first one. Look, the second one, it's been a funny old start to the tournament, I guess, from a weather perspective. And obviously we had
funny is an understatement.
Yeah, I think it's obviously hard to control what's going on with the weather here in Melbourne in particular, but the scheduling, I think through that second and third days, it was chaos to begin with. They did well on the third day to be able to kind of get everything back on track, but the lack of communication, I think, to the players. So the players were still on site at 11 p.m, 12 o'clock at night, and the schedule for the next day hadn't even come out yet. So players didn't know if they had to rock up again at 7 o'clock to work their way into a warm-up to play at 11 a.m. or whether they were going to be playing in the night session. So just the lack of communication, I think, is something that's been a bit of an issue. But also just, I think, one more for the lay-bin, just the general, I think, negative media around the Australian Open at the start in terms of, we lost Kyrgios, we lost Tomljanovic, everyone's saying, well, what's going to happen? Where are the stories going to come from? I think there's been more than enough through the first 5 days from just the other Aussies in the draw. There's been a few stories, some on the court, some off the court. But I think, the positive, I think, for Tennis Australia is at least people are talking about tennis. We've got the Big Bash and there's other things on that were commanding a bit of the attention. But, driving in this morning, the only thing I heard on the radio was people talking about Murray and Kokonakis. And I think that might, even if it is good or bad publicity, I think it's something, at least it's been spoken about. And I think that was a bit of a worry, particularly when Kyrgios dropped out, as to who was going to be that story with no Barty on tour anymore.
Kyrgios is obviously a huge loss to the media and the marketing. He's its own storyline. He's a walking story, Kyrgios. But I tell you what, in terms of Australian, and we saw a great story and something for the backboard, some positivity from you early. Alexei Popyrin.
Yep.
What a win. His post-match interview was phenomenal. He was tearing up, he was welling, and yeah, it was very emotional, and the crowd were getting behind him, and he spoke superbly. So that's on the backboard. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it was a phenomenal performance. I wish it was against a player that I didn't have as an outright selection in Taylor Fritz, but that's fine.
So you're filthy about it.
I think one of the key things to take out of the first couple of days is that the Netflix curse is real with the tennis players who have taken part in the documentary.
Have you watched the series?
I haven't.
I watched the first one.
I've seen little snippets of it.
Yep.
But the fact that I think there's only maybe 2 players that remain out of the 10 players that were covered. So there has been absolute chaos through the first couple of rounds there. So there is a little bit of a curse.
Yep.
But yeah, look, I think Popyrin had a really disappointing year last year. I think
only won 2 matches for the year.
Yep.
He's won more matches already in January 20.
Yep, and I think a lot of it comes back to his belief and confidence in his game, and he's been able to bring on a new coach, Xavier Malisse, who played on the tour for over a decade, and went deep in some Grand Slams, and has the ability to be able to provide, I think, that experience, and he's obviously found a way to tap in to Alexei that previous coaches haven't, and I think you can see how well he plays with the crowd at his back, and I think. John Cain Arena has been kind of the Kyrgios court of late, but if you look last night, you've got Popyrin and then Demonor. The crowd helped them significantly, both of them, and even earlier in the tournament with John Millman coming back from a deficit as well. You can't underestimate the crowd, and I think tomorrow, if they do play on John Cain Arena, both of them, on a Saturday, the biggest day generally in terms of crowds, later in the day, after the crowd has a couple of beverages just to loosen up for the afternoon. I think we could see some wild scenes if organisers end up putting them on John Cain Arena. Just
on Popyrin as well, he actually said to the crowd, stick around and watch the Demon afterwards. Like he encouraged them to be as vocal as they were for him. It's great Australian spirit and great to actually see that camaraderie in the team, which is something we probably haven't had recently, but it's good to see the tight-knit Australian players. Enough positivity, mate. Let's get my lace.
Yep.
Tennis times. Now, why is Kokkinakis and Murray? I was thinking about going last night, and you mentioned this, and I talked to you and said, what time will this game start? It started at 10:15. It's a Thursday night. I've got to be in bed at 10:15. Went till, what time did it finish? 2 a.m?
4.
4
just after 4, yeah. So it was, I think it was about 5
Getting the lab in.
Yeah. Just under 6 hours on court.
Yeah.
And what
I
made
don't like tennis that much to stay till 4 a.m.
That's fair. I mean, a lot of people stayed, which was the impressive part about it.
If you like tennis and you love it, it would have been a brilliant game.
Yeah, absolutely. But
you're calling in sick for work on Friday after staying up till 4 a.m?
You'd have to. And you can see when you are at the tennis at late, those late sessions where it's getting towards midnight and there's the last train calls and you see the people, starting to head off. And you can see the people who go, well, I'm in for the long haul now. And I don't know if anyone who was there, Kokkinakis was serving at, 2 sets to love up and serving, I think it was at 5-3. You're thinking, it's probably over. Let's start heading to the car park in a couple of minutes, and fast forward another 3 hours, and they're still out there battling away. I think the issue is that the day session runs late so often through that first week of the tournament. So you've got, there were 3 matches on Margaret Court yesterday. It was 2 women's and a men's. The 2 women's matches both went to 3 sets, and then the men's was Alexander Zverev, who it was a very, very long 4-set match. Could have been 5, could have been pushed back even later. Maybe it's just to be time to the 11 a.m. start time. Maybe that just needs to be brought forward an hour, or something needs to be done. I know people talk about getting rid of the player warm-ups when they come onto the court. You assume that players have been warming up for hours in the lead up to, to be able to kind of save a little bit of time. But there is just a little bit of too much dead time, I think, between the matches.
Yep.
That you can kind of tighten things up, particularly on those big show courts where, there are people who have paid hundreds of dollars for their, to be able to actually, go and watch the tennis. You don't want to be sitting around waiting if you're watching for one match to have to wait till 10:30, 11 for the start.
It says the night session. You buy a ticket for the night session, it starts at 7 o'clock. You're not expecting to watch the main match at 10:30, let alone 4 a.m. in the morning.
Yep.
So that's in the low bin. Also, I went there day one, came back from the Gold Coast, went to the tennis day one, went to a chicken place. It was actually an Asian restaurant, but their main dish, they had 3 dishes on their menu. The main dish was chicken. They ran out of chicken. 6 p.m. on day one. Get in the low bin. That's ridiculous. Come on, Australia. All right, that's enough for the negativity.
Okay.
You've been doing some multis and they've been really flying of late on Betfair. So you can actually head to the multi section of the Betfair website and under ace previews, ace_previews day, whatever it is, day 5 multi today, you can log on. They've been paying really good money as well. So if you're actually 20%, 20% better than most other corporates, if you went that way and backed those. So you've got one today. Hopefully this is out before the time, but what are they, mate?
So there's 4 players, and it's just to win their respective matches. So we've got Daniil Medvedev, who's playing Sebastian Korda in the night session tonight. Could be another late night there. Cam Norrie, Maria Sakkari, and Elena Rybakina, all to win. So that should be looking at around about $3 for the back, I think, looking when I had a last look at the exchange, which looks to be nice value. So Sakkari, Norrie, and Medvedev are all on the shorter side, but I think Rybakina's price, just to add a little bit of value there, just to boost those odds up a little bit, I think they're 4 very solid players to be able to back in today for day 5.
Are you with Steve or are you against him? Back or lay? Take him on. Why not? Lay him. $3.40 to lay, $3.10 or around that to back at the moment for that multi. So take him on if you want. Go for it. I like that. Let's get to the women's, mate. We'll fly through this. Now, the women's, we've got obviously a firm favourite, Iga Swiatek. She's fluctuated a little bit in betting. She was tested in her first game that I watched. She takes a long time to serve too, but she was tested throughout that match against the German, Niemeyer, is that right?
Yep.
Who challenged her. How's she going? Is she a bet at the $3 at the moment?
I had her as a bet just at the start of the tournament. So when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how there were some players in the draw that would present a little bit of a challenge for some of the bigger hitters in the draw. That could
and Niemeyer qualifies as a bigger hitter?
She did qualify,
but
not to the same
hitter?
extent as she is a bigger hitter. Yeah. So there were a couple of others in the quarter, and you look at the likes of, so there's Danielle Collins and Elena Rybakina who are playing today, Coco Gauff. They're just in her quarter. But I thought there was almost a little bit too much of an overreaction, and she actually went out to around that kind of 360, 370 mark, which presented a little bit of value compared to what we saw from her before the tournament. But at the moment, I think that's probably a fair price based on what we've seen. She has a relatively easy game today, but things will really ramp up from round 4 onwards for her. So one to keep an eye on. But I guess the other thing that you can do then in this instance is to kind of look to the other half and try and find a little bit of value within that.
So who's she potentially playing? If she progresses through to the finals or whatnot, who's she playing or who will she meet in the final or who will avoid her leading up to that final?
So avoiding the final, because she is the number 1 seed, she'll sit in that first quarter of the draw. So you look to the kind of quarters 3 and 4 because they will kind of battle each other out before we get to that point. So the players that are down in that bottom section, Arina Sabalenka is probably the main one that comes to mind when you look at the draw at the moment and the form that she's been able to produce through the early stages. I think she's probably the one to beat. One of the names that I did mention a couple of weeks ago was Marketa Vondrousova.
Yes, you did. Big price.
So she...
It's $34 now at Betfair.com.
Yeah, so she's come from about the hundreds into $34. So she defeated Ons Jabeur last night, the number 2 seed.
You didn't mind Ons Jabeur, but you liked, obviously, at $34, $100, Vondrousova.
Yes, so I think Jabeur, the advantage of her being in that bottom half was that we knew that she was going to be away from Swiatek. But that was, it was concerning to see the level that she produced in the first round and then, the second round last night. So they were playing on Rod Laver Arena while Kokkinakis and Murray were slugging it out on Margaret Court. So there was barely anyone in the centre court, but Vondrousova put in a really solid performance. So she's actually technically taken the draw of the 2 seed now and should be, it's a danger game next up, but she should be favourite basically through to the quarterfinals, where I'd anticipate she's probably going to be playing either Arina Sabalenka or Belinda Bencic. So they're kind of the 3 in the pocket down the bottom. Caroline Garcia.
So are we taking the 34s now still? I know we recommended a week and a half, 2 weeks ago to take the hundreds about her.
Yep.
Or the 80s or whatever you got. She's now $34, so you can actually trade out at 38 and make profit. But are you still with her there? You think she shortens? I think she gets through the next round?
I think she should shorten a little bit. So the next round is a little bit dangerous, but she is sitting, I think, around that $1.40 for the money line, so is in a good position.
Yep.
And should also be a strong favourite in a potential 4th round. So there's still kind of room to move there a little bit. You could also potentially keep an eye on the outright markets in her next round match, and if she were to drop the first set, she will drift out a little bit, but it may be worth even, if it does get out, towards the hundreds again. She's shown that she can come back. She was 2-4 down in the final set of the first round and reeled off, I think, 16 of the last 17 points to win. She's always in the contest, so she's one to keep an eye on. I'm still not particularly sold on the level of Caroline Garcia, who's another one who's at the top of the market.
So we're against her?
I am at the moment.
Lay the $11.50?
I think I'm going to wait on the lay until she should win the next round against Siegmund, but I think from there I'm a little bit concerned. I think she's under. She's finding really big first serves at really key moments in her matches, but I'm just not sure that holds up as we get deeper into the tournament. She was playing Leylah Fernandez yesterday. She won 7-6, 7-5, but she was 2-5 down in the first set tiebreak and saved a set point in the second set. She's kind of living on the edge a little bit, too much for my liking for someone that strong in the market this early in the tournament. So she's one that I'm just going to be a little bit wary of, and I think she's just a little bit too short. But they're kind of the names I think that are going to be most pressing in terms of being able to challenge, if it's eager in the final.
Great. We'll get your best bets later in the show as well. Let's get to the men's side, if you're happy to push on.
Yep.
Men's side, Djokovic, what scenes last night? He's $2.58, Medvedev $4.30, as I said. Tsitsipas going along okay, $11.50. Holger Rune, $12. Sinner, $18. Now, last night we saw Djokovic lose the second set, tweaked his hammy. You got straight on the text to me and said, check out the market. He was $1.90 before the match last night, Djokovic, and he got challenged. He tweaked his hamstring. He has been known to do this as well. He got out to as much as $3.40, amazingly. He's now $2.58. So the odds have fluctuated. He lost the tiebreak in the second. He won convincingly after that. His next two sets, he obviously, his hamstring's okay. What do you make of last night's match? What do you make of his hamstring? And what do you make of the price, $2.58?
Yeah, I think the price is fair at the moment.
Has there been any reports? Is he pulled up okay?
He said he's not happy with the hamstring, and he said there's the advantage of with the Australian Open, you get it every second day as a rest day. So when you win, so he's only playing every second day, so he's got a bit of time to recover. The advantage for him last night was the fact that he was playing against a player that he could comfortably handle. If that were to happen later in the tournament, and you got a bigger name who was a little bit more capable, then you're starting to kind of question that a little bit. Things are going to get tougher for him from here on.
Yes.
I do think that the best way to find out how his hamstring is to play Grigor Dimitrov in the next round, who can extend rallies, use his slice, really turn it into a 3-4 hour match if he has the ability to snatch a set at some point. And then potentially after that, it's a match against Alex de Minaur. So there is going to, things are only going to get more physical now for Novak. So it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on. But like I said a couple of weeks ago, all it takes is something. It's a medical timeout. It's something to be able to watch that price drift out. And even if it is a case of if you're seeing a red number next to Novak at the moment on your book, to be able to just have a look at it and go, just pick off a little bit at
level
threes,
up
or just to try and get it back as close as you can to zero, just while it's in this price range. Because as we get closer to the end of the tournament, it is probably going to come in unless he really does something bad to that hamstring. But probably just a watch and see, I think, as he plays Grigor Dimitrov.
He has been known to do this. He did his hip or something last year. He came off with a hip injury.
Yeah, so he's had abdominal. So he won a couple of years ago with a torn abdominal muscle. So he's got room to move because he is just that much better than everyone else.
And he pushed him aside last night. He won the fourth set 6-love.
Yep.
So 6-1 in the first and 6-love in the fourth. That would have helped him obviously get through that pretty comfortably and not be challenged.
Yeah, but if you think about having a difficulty like that, the type of player that is going to challenge him most is probably Daniil Medvedev, and we saw that price really come in yesterday while that match was in play, and it's kind of held around that $4.30.
Yeah, fascinating. He's clearly second favourite. So Djokovic $2.58, $2.60, Medvedev $4.30. Any value? What are we playing? What are we taking mid-tournament now, and who will shorten?
Yeah, I think looking at it at the moment, I'm going to keep Novak safe. So I think if he looks to be struggling a little bit early against Dimitrov, I'll probably just pick off a little bit around, if it sits around that $3.10 mark again. Just to kind of bring the liability down on Novak.
Can I just pause you there and we'll talk about education. We may as well do that now because it's a perfect opportunity. The men's tournament, women's tournament overall winners, watch the games as they're playing. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Watch the games as they're going, and we're talking about the odds fluctuating in these winners' markets. You don't have to call up because it's not an in-play market. It's the overall winner. The odds fluctuate huge amounts. So as we said last night, if you were to lay Djokovic at $1.90 before the match for the tournament last night, he would have got out to $3.40. You back it, you can trade, make money.
Yep.
So that's just what I wanted to say.
And I think that's the thing of, people were, jumping at the opportunity to take Novak around that $2 mark at the start of the tournament. But just knowing that, if there was a little bit of a question mark, and just having that patience to be able to go, well, right, now there's an opportunity that we're, nearly 1 week into the tournament, and Novak is a longer price than he was at the start of the tournament.
Amazing. So anyway, you've got Djokovic just chip away potentially. You don't want to lose if he wins at the moment. You said that a couple of weeks ago as well. But who's the bet?
Yeah, I think looking at the current prices and looking at the weather conditions for the rest of the fortnight as well, I think Holger Rune is probably one to just keep an eye on. I think he's sitting around the $12 mark at the moment. He's one who could potentially take advantage of that section and that half that Novak is also in. So I think, when you look at what's happening with the market at the moment, we've got Medvedev and Tsitsipas and Sinner, who are the three, so second, third and fifth favourites in the market, but they're all on the opposite side of the draw to Novak. So they're all kind of going to have to battle each other out, and only one of them's really going to make it through. But I think if you can pick someone from the half that Novak's in at the moment, I think Holger Rune is probably the one that the draw has really opened up for him. And when you look through with all the seeds and everyone else who lost their way out of that half of the draw yesterday, I think he's one to keep an eye on that should be able to come in. And we saw at Paris last year, he can match it with Novak. Take
the $12, Holger Rune, and he will be shorter. You can trade out later. Really good advice there. Just some data before you get to best bets.
Yep.
Andy Murray, obviously, Kokonakis went to 5 sets, went to 4 a.m. Huge match last night. Andy Murray hit $70 in play, 2.3 thousand matched at $10 plus.
Yep.
Kokonakis hit $1.01, $1.85 million matched at $1.20 or lower on him. Unbelievable.
And that's the thing with the scoring system of tennis. You can be so close to winning, and that was the case with Kokonakis. And then he loses that third set, in a tie break, and it's almost back to square one, having to start again at 0-0 in the fourth. And the finish line just moves that much further away.
That rally where Kokonakis had 4 overhead smashes to put him away, and Murray stayed in the contest and won the point. That is unbelievable tennis.
Yeah, the Kokonakis smash has been a bit of an issue for him across this month. So, if he can shore that up, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good year for Tanasi moving his way back up the rankings.
There you go. Just another upset. This lady has the best name in tennis. If she wasn't born to play tennis, no one was. Volley nets.
Yep, Katie.
Yep,
American.
Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, yep, American qualifier.
Volley nets is her name.
Yep.
That's made up, surely. She beat Kurtamatova in 3 sets.
Yep.
Massive upset.
Yep. So again, another upset of one of the players I'd spoken about a couple of weeks ago, but it was impressive, and her ability to stay in the contest and really extend rallies and make Kurtamatova, make unforced errors at some uncharacteristic moments was really key.
Kurtamatova matched at $1.07 in play, over 75,000 matched at $1.20 or less for her. So big upset there. Betfair.com.au. That's the beauty of Betfair. All right, best bets time, mate.
Yep.
What have we got? Men's?
Yep, men's. So one for tonight to keep an eye on. I do like Daniil Medvedev tonight against Korda. So I'm taking the minus 6.5 games there. I think Korda looked a little bit average in the cooler conditions of the nighttime against Watanuki in the last round. And I think Medvedev can smell blood now. He's seen what's happened yesterday. He's seen that Novak may have a bit of an issue. I think this is the time for Medvedev to make a statement.
Love that. There you go. That's your best bet. And Rune's your best bet in the overall winners market at the moment.
I think at the moment.
Back to lay strategy or something like that. So take the $12. Rune. Women's, mate, what have we got?
Yeah, I think, looking at the play this afternoon, Danielle Collins, I do think that she should be a little bit longer in her odds. So Rybakina is in the multi, and I also like her if you can get minus 1.5 games or minus 2. These two played a couple of weeks ago, and Rybakina started slowly, but really started to figure Collins out through sets 2 and 3. And I think she's really one to keep an eye on. There's just floating under the radar a little bit, and could be one who could cause Iga Swiatek a little bit of trouble.
Brilliant, mate. Well, that's all up there. Head to betfair.com.au/hub for Steve's previews, all things Australian Open. We've also got your multi, so head to betfair.com.au for your multi. Take him on if you don't like him. If you like him, if you agree with him, you disagree, back him. I love it. Been a pleasure having you on again, mate.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on Layback with Betfair.
Gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-858-858.